Yeah, the guys would like you to stop drilling right now. Let's pull the rods out. Let's clean out the filings, make sure everything goes in a bag, and see what we can see.
Oak Island has officially reached a point of no return. For decades, the mystery of where the treasure actually lies has obsessed explorers across North America. Endless theories were debated, millions of dollars poured into drilling, and countless clues surfaced, only to fall apart before forming a complete picture. Until now, because Marty Lagina has just done the unthinkable. He didn't speculate. He didn't theorize. He pinpointed it. A treasure valued at nearly $300 million, reduced to a single precise location. A target backed by historical documentation, subsurface imaging, and discoveries the team quietly sat on for years. This isn't another hopeful guess or a dramatic cliffhanger. This is the moment where decades of failure suddenly connect into one clear answer. If the evidence is right, Oak Island won't just rewrite its own story. It will finally close the chapter on the hunt itself. So if you want to witness how this discovery unfolds, make sure to like and subscribe. We're racing towards 7,000 subscribers, and you'll want to be here before history is made. The morning Marty Lagina returned to Oak Island with his latest findings, the island felt different, not battered by the relentless winds they'd endured all season, but wrapped in an unsettling calm. It was as if the land itself had gone quiet, waiting. The moment Marty stepped out of the truck, Rick sensed it. There was a sharp focus in his brother's movements, a confidence that didn't belong to someone still searching. Marty wasn't arriving to explore possibilities. He was arriving to validate something he already believed was true. Rick had spent years beside his brother, watching his analytical approach guide every major decision. But this time felt different. Marty wasn't chasing a hypothesis. He was walking like a man who already knew exactly where the truth was buried. A heavy morning fog settled over the swamp, drifting low and thick, muting every sound. It clung to Marty's boots as he moved toward the swamp's center, the mist curling around him as if the island itself was resisting what he was about to reveal. Rick followed closely, watching Marty study survey maps spanning decades, maps Rick had memorized over half his life, maps that defined the Oak Island legacy. Yet Marty read them differently. He ignored bold markings others fixated on. He paused over faint shadows most researchers dismissed. And every time his finger stopped on a subtle detail, Rick felt that familiar tightening in his chest, the feeling that always came when they were on the edge of something real. For the first time in years, Oak Island didn't feel stubborn or silent. It felt awake, like whatever lay beneath the swamp had finally recognized the right person had arrived. The legendary treasure, the rumored vault, the whispers passed down through generations. Suddenly they didn't feel like folklore. They felt close, uncomfortably close. Marty knelt at the swamp's center, pressing his gloved hand into the saturated ground. He nodded, almost to himself, as if confirming a thought he'd carried for years. Then he called the team over. The shift happened instantly. As the equipment activated, a faint irregularity appeared beneath the swamp's eye. Subtle, easy to miss, but unmistakable. Rick's brow tightened. He'd seen countless false positives, sonar distortions, sediment anomalies, technical glitches, but this was different. Marty adjusted the settings, and the image sharpened. What appeared beneath them didn't behave like natural swamp layers. The density was wrong. The compression was wrong. The structure didn't align with any known geological process. Instead, it showed signs of intentional construction, layered soil, controlled compaction, engineering done centuries ago. Rick's breath caught. Before anyone could speak, Marty rescanned the area. And that's when the image locked into place. Straight lines, clean angles, symmetrical corners, a hollow space that didn't curve or collapse like a natural cavity. This wasn't erosion. This was geometry. "This isn't natural," Marty said quietly. "Someone built this." No one reacted with cheers or disbelief. What filled the space was something heavier, because in all their years of searching, nothing had ever looked this precise, this deliberate. This wasn't a clue. It was a plan. Rick stepped closer, hands trembling as he studied the screen. They weren't staring at a random underground feature. They were looking at a layout, a vault design, the kind of structure you only build to protect something immensely valuable or dangerously important. Marty's eyes burned with adrenaline and certainty. "This is the heart of the island," he said. "Not speculation, not hope, a conclusion." Then he went further. He pulled up archived Templar blueprints on his tablet. 13th century vault designs, concealed chamber systems, diversion tunnels meant to mislead intruders. One by one, he overlaid them onto the swamp scans. The alignment was undeniable. Angles matched. Measurements lined up. Even the void's proportions were nearly identical. Marty explained how medieval Templars often hid assets beneath wetlands, using layered sediment to disguise entrances. Waterlogged ground preserved wooden structures, slowed decay, and discouraged excavation. An intentional defense against future discovery. That's when Rick remembered something his father once told him. A strange old story about a hidden underground structure beneath the swamp. A tale early treasure hunters whispered about and quickly dismissed. Standing there, staring at the data, Rick realized those whispers might not have been myths at all. Marty wasn't finished. He pulled up an old Nova Scotia Templar route map, one historians long criticized as inaccurate. He pointed to a missing symbol near Oak Island, a mark written off for generations as a cartographer's error. When he aligned that missing marker with his newly identified coordinates, everything snapped into place. Tunnel angles, chamber positioning, swamp location, a design overlooked for centuries, finally revealed. And that's where everything changes. Then Marty revealed the detail that changed the entire meaning of what they were standing on. This chamber, he said, was never meant to hold just gold. It was a repository, a seal, a protected space designed to safeguard documents, possibly artifacts, never intended to be discovered by chance, only by someone who understood the system behind it. Rick locked eyes with his brother. If Marty was right, they weren't hovering above a $300 million fortune. They were standing over something far more dangerous to history itself. A vault engineered with intention, hidden beneath a swamp, specifically because ordinary tools, ordinary thinking, and ordinary timelines would always fail. For the first time since the Lagina brothers first stepped onto Oak Island decades ago, the treasure stopped feeling like legend. It felt measurable, locatable, real. Without speaking, Marty walked to the map table and laid a transparent overlay across the scan data. Rick leaned in as new shapes emerged, circles, arcs, intersecting angles. These weren't construction plans. They were astronomical. Marty tapped the center point, and the projection shifted. The night sky appeared as it would have looked in the year 1347. Instantly, the swamp location they just tested snapped into alignment with an invisible axis stretching north. Marty rotated the model, positioning Polaris directly above the swamp's center. The placement was exact. This wasn't coincidence. It was precision astronomy. Marty explained that early Templar vaults weren't hidden using surface markers alone. Entrances, chambers, even escape routes were encoded using star positions. Without the correct historical sky, explorers would always be slightly off. Close enough to feel cursed, far enough to always fail. He slid the timeline forward century by century. Rick watched as the alignment slowly drifted away, the star path peeling off the swamp by mere meters. That's why every excavation missed, why every tunnel flooded, why every collapse felt like bad luck. They were all digging using modern star charts. When Marty snapped the projection back to the 1300s, the geometry locked perfectly into place. 3 celestial lines converged into a sharp triangular formation, pointing to a single apex, the exact spot Marty had identified. Rick couldn't speak. The realization hit all at once. Centuries of misunderstanding undone in minutes. Generations of failure explained not by deception, but by time itself. The island hadn't lied. History had been misread. Before the team could fully absorb it, they moved back to the swamp with the new coordinates marked. The first probe pierced the water and sank into mud that felt unnaturally dense, resistant, as if pushing back. As it descended, bubbles surfaced slowly, not chaotic, but rhythmic, controlled, like the swamp was releasing pressure. "This doesn't feel like normal sediment," Marty said quietly. "It feels like pressure equalization, like we just breached a sealed space." The bubbles pulsed again, confirming it. Marty barely reacted. He said this was exactly what he expected. Templar engineers, he explained, were masters of hydraulic concealment. They used water pressure, not as a defense, but as a preservation system. This wasn't a warning. It was proof. Then the air changed. Rick noticed it first, a faint scent drifting upward. Not decay, not rot. Something older, earthy, woody, preserved timber. The unmistakable smell of ancient structural wood, sealed away from oxygen for centuries. Rick and Marty exchanged a look. They both felt it. They weren't probing swamp anymore. They were brushing against the environment created by the original builders. As the probe went deeper, soft sediment gave way to resistance, possibly compacted clay walls or collapsed beams. The water above began forming subtle ripples, not random, but patterned, geometric. It no longer felt like a swamp at all. It felt like camouflage. Marty watched the readings stabilize, his focus sharpening. Everything he predicted from the star alignment was matching reality. Celestial placement, engineered concealment, pressure preservation, all 3 systems responding at once. He opened another data layer, seismic scans from previous deep tests. Normally, Oak Island data was chaotic, fractured by unstable geology. But with the new alignment applied, the noise organized itself, not into a single void, into something branching. Marty filtered the lower frequencies, and a long, sloping disturbance emerged beneath the chamber they'd already identified. Rick leaned closer, barely breathing. This wasn't a cavity. It was linear, consistent, deliberate. A tunnel. Marty overlaid angle measurements. The slope matched medieval Portuguese fort bunkers almost exactly. He explained these designs often served dual purposes: secure storage and emergency escape for those guarding the repository. Rick had seen hundreds of false tunnel signals over the years. Water channels, sediment cracks. None like this. This signal was smooth, rhythmic, intentional. As Marty traced it deeper, the tunnel didn't fade like natural voids usually do. It curved gently, following the same Polaris-based geometry. Then came the moment that sent a chill through everyone. 40 feet beyond the main chamber, a second echo appeared. Rectangular, sharp-edged, solid, stone. Marty froze the image. The angles were too clean, too intact. This wasn't collapse or rubble. This was a structure untouched by centuries of water. Rick felt it in his spine. He'd dreamed of Oak Island tunnels his entire life, but none had ever presented certainty like this. "This is the clearest tunnel we've ever seen," he whispered. Marty didn't disagree. The data didn't allow doubt. He stepped closer to the projection, voice steady. This system wasn't built just to hide valuables. It was designed to protect people or allow them to escape if the vault was ever compromised. A rare, dual-purpose engineering feat, one that somehow survived 7 centuries of floods, storms, and human interference. And for the first time, Oak Island wasn't hiding anymore. And yet there it was, still intact beneath the swamp, still protecting whatever the Templars had sealed away centuries ago. With the tunnel now fully traced and the celestial alignment locked in, Marty ordered a deeper seismic sweep along the corridor. As the probe advanced, the returns sharpened dramatically. At the far end of the vaulted chamber, the system hesitated, software lagging for just a fraction of a second before stabilizing. What appeared wasn't timber. It wasn't stone. It was dense, jagged, layered, heavy, metallic, but not a single mass. Marty zoomed in as the density visualization shifted into deep reds and blacks, the unmistakable signature of extreme weight. The shape resolved into overlapping contours, like compressed plates or stacked objects fused together under centuries of pressure. Rick leaned in, his eyes widening. He had seen this pattern before, in European excavation reports, in Spanish vaults, where gold ingots, chalices, and ceremonial relics had slowly merged underground over time. The frequency profile was nearly identical. Marty expanded the mass field and initiated a weight analysis: density, volume, depth, resistance. The software processed silently. When the number appeared, Marty drew in a sharp breath. Just under 4,000 pounds. Rick blinked, stunned. Nearly 2 tons of metallic material, sealed inside a chamber engineered for stability, protected by astronomical alignment, preserved beneath a pressure-controlled swamp. Marty recalibrated and ran the calculation again. The number didn't move. Only a tightly packed cache of metal artifacts, or a concentrated hoard of gold, could produce a signal that intense. Even a portion of that mass would exceed $300 million at modern valuation. And if the contents weren't raw bullion but ceremonial Templar reliquaries, the historical value could dwarf the monetary one. This chamber wasn't just concealing wealth, it was concealing purpose. Rick stepped back, the weight of the moment nearly overwhelming him. For decades, he had drilled, scanned, theorized, and hoped, inching toward proof. And yet the swamp, this place they had drained, dismissed, revisited, and doubted, had kept its secret just beyond reach the entire time. He remembered something his father once said long ago. It wasn't just hidden. It wanted the right person to find it. Watching Marty calmly align star charts, seismic data, and structural geometry like someone unlocking a cipher, Rick felt a realization settle in. Maybe the island had been waiting for his brother. Every collapse, every misdirection, every failed dig, all of it had pushed the search away from the money pit and toward this exact moment. For the first time, Oak Island didn't feel hostile. It felt responsive. Marty cross-referenced the mass reading with the tunnel's slope, tightening his calculations. The data snapped into place, responding as if a final sequence had been entered correctly. Rick felt the weight of decades pressed down on him so hard he had to steady himself against the equipment table. "You might have solved the island," he whispered. Marty didn't respond. He was already pulling up 2 centuries of excavation diagrams, money pit schematics, flood tunnel theories, cribbing layers, collapse models. One by one, he dismantled them digitally, then overlaid everything onto the new swamp scans. What emerged wasn't contradiction, it was correction. For generations, explorers assumed the money pit was the center of everything. Marty showed why that never made sense. The inconsistencies in early accounts, the impracticality of vertical construction for a priceless medieval repository. No serious engineer would bury something invaluable straight down. The money pit wasn't a vault. It wasn't meant to store anything at all. It was bait. Marty highlighted how its construction mirrored known Templar misdirection techniques, false shafts designed to collapse, flood, or distract. The real objective wasn't hiding treasure underground. It was pulling attention away from the actual vault, positioned laterally and accessible only through the swamp's concealed chamber. Even the infamous flood tunnels suddenly made sense. They weren't random obstacles. They were alarms. Hydraulic traps designed to activate when pressure shifted near the money pit, ensuring anyone digging there would be stopped long before reaching the true repository. Rick exhaled sharply as everything locked together. Every setback, every collapse, every so-called failure. They weren't mistakes, they were protections. Oak Island wasn't chaos, it was strategy. Marty showed how even the earliest treasure hunters in the 1700s unknowingly triggered the island's defenses by digging in the wrong place. From that moment forward, every expedition followed the same flawed assumption, that the pit was the heart. But now, with celestial geometry, seismic clarity, and structural logic aligned, the truth was undeniable. The vault was never beneath the pit. It was always meant to be approached sideways, through the star-aligned swamp chamber, down the sloped tunnel, and into the stone-sealed vault, where the metallic mass had waited untouched. The map transformed before their eyes. Not a tangle of competing theories, but a single, unified design. Alignment, deception, preservation, all executed with precision by people who expected intruders centuries in advance. Satisfied that the digital model perfectly matched the ground data, Marty led the team back into the swamp. As he brushed away a thin layer of muck, something sharp and unmistakable emerged beneath his glove. A carved stone triangle. Its edges were too perfect, its symmetry too exact. Rick nearly dropped to his knees. The symbol was unmistakable, the same geometric language as Nolan's cross, the same mathematical signature etched throughout Oak Island. But this triangle was pointed, directional, an arrow aimed straight toward the anomaly Marty had identified. Rick traced the angle with a laser level. The beam sliced across the swamp and landed precisely on Marty's calculated coordinates. The alignment matched the 1347 celestial path, the position of the North Star during the final years of the Templar dispersal. Their breath caught, not because it was coincidence. Marty Lagina had finally illuminated the place where the story could end, or where its greatest chapter was about to begin. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more discoveries like this. Your support helps us continue exploring the mysteries where history and legend collide.